The rain had not stopped for hours. It tapped against the stained glass windows of the old Brighton Theatre like impatient fingers, whispering secrets only the shadows understood. The dressing room smelled of powder, wilted roses, and faded applause. On the vanity, a note lay folded neatly beside an untouched lipstick. No one had noticed it yet. Lena had been the star of the evening. The curtain had fallen just an hour ago, and the buzz of the audience still echoed faintly in the halls. Yet backstage was eerily quiet now, too quiet for a night of triumph. Costumes hung limp on their rails. The lights flickered above, casting long silhouettes over the empty corridor. "Has anyone seen Lena?" whispered Ava, her voice trembling as she peeked behind the velvet curtain. The stage manager shook his head, distracted by a faulty spotlight. Ava's heels clicked rapidly across the floor. She opened the dressing room door, her heart catching at the sight of the untouched bouquet. The room was still warm, as if Lena had just been there. But she wasn't. The chair stood pushed back slightly. Her coat was gone. So was her phone. Yet the lipstick, the one Lena always reapplied before curtain call, sat still and untouched. Then Ava noticed the note. She picked it up slowly, her breath caught between anticipation and dread. The handwriting was unmistakable. It was Lena's. "I'm sorry. There are things I can't explain. Not now. Please don't follow me." Ava's fingers tightened around the paper. This wasn't like Lena. She was bold, confident, the kind of woman who stood tall even in chaos. But this was fear. Outside, thunder rolled above the Brighton skyline. Miles away, on a wind-swept cliff, a woman in a red dress stood with her back to the sea. Hair tangled, arms wrapped around herself, she watched the waves slam violently against the rocks. Her face, once adorned with stage lights and applause, was now soaked with rain and something far colder. She didn't turn around when a figure approached. She only whispered one name. "James." The next morning, Brighton's skies remained heavy with gloom. The storm had passed, but the scent of wet concrete and salt lingered like the taste of secrets left unspoken. Inside the theater, the velvet curtains were still drawn, and the seats sat empty, like silent witnesses to a performance that no longer mattered. Ava stood at the center of the stage. She wrapped her coat tighter around her frame, though it wasn't the cold she was fighting, it was the silence. The kind that crawled up your back and whispered that something was terribly wrong. She kept looking toward the wings, half expecting Lena to emerge with her signature smile and a clever excuse. But only shadows greeted her. As the rest of the company shuffled in, murmuring confused greetings and nervous speculations, Ava slipped away to the dressing room. The note was still where she had left it, now sealed in a plastic sleeve and handed to the theater director, Mr. Caldwell. He had barely said a word since he arrived, only scanning the handwriting as if it might rearrange itself into something more comforting. "She wouldn't just walk away," Ava said quietly, staring into the mirror where Lena had once Saturday, "not without telling me the truth." Mr. Caldwell sighed and rubbed his temples. "People leave, Ava. Especially in this business. Some chase bigger roles. Some run from things they don't dare name." "But Lena wasn't running from anything," Ava replied firmly. "She loved this stage. She owned it." Mr. Caldwell didn't respond. That afternoon, Ava returned to the theater alone. She needed answers. Something about Lena's disappearance gnawed at her, something unspoken. The theater had always held its share of legends and odd happenings. Ghost lights, creaking floorboards, voices in the wings. Old stories passed around between cast and crew during late rehearsals. But something about today felt different. The silence wasn't just absence. It was warning. Ava made her way to the trapdoor beneath the main stage, a place few ever went. It led to the old storage tunnels beneath the building, remnants of an era long gone. Dust clung to her boots as she stepped into the dim corridor, her torch slicing through the darkness. She wasn't sure what she was looking for. Maybe Lena's coat, or her phone. A clue. Anything. Then she heard it. A faint rustling. She froze. The torchlight flickered, catching on the edge of something glinting in the dust. She stepped closer and picked it up. It was a compact mirror. Gold-trimmed. Familiar. It was Lena's. Her breath caught in her throat. The mirror was cracked down the middle, as if dropped in a hurry. A sound behind her. Footsteps. She spun around. Nothing but shadows. But then, a voice. Faint. Echoing. Ava. She stumbled back, the mirror slipping from her hands and shattering further against the stone floor. Her torch dimmed for a moment, the beam weakening. When the light steadied, Ava saw it. A message on the wall, scrawled in lipstick. He watches. Don't trust the script. Ava's heart pounded as she backed away from the wall. The message in lipstick glared at her, fresh and deliberate, as though someone had written it only moments before. She wiped her trembling hands on her coat and took a deep breath, forcing herself to think. He watches. Don't trust the script. What did it mean? Who was he? And why would anyone warn her not to trust the script, their script? Clutching the broken compact mirror, Ava rushed out of the tunnels, emerging into the backstage corridor with her breath short and her mind spinning. She needed help. Answers. But who could she trust? Back in the rehearsal room, the cast had gathered for a scheduled run-through of Act 2. They didn't yet know Lena was officially missing. Most still assumed she'd taken a dramatic exit, some artistic tantrum before opening night. But Ava knew better. Something far deeper was at play. She pulled Emily aside, the costume assistant, sharp-eyed and always listening, often unnoticed by those who underestimated her. Did you see Lena leave last night? Ava asked in a hushed tone. Emily looked up from her sewing kit, startled. No. I saw her go into the dressing room after curtain call. I didn't see her after that. Why? She's gone. Her note said she quit, but it doesn't feel right. And I just found something in the tunnels. Ava lowered her voice further. There's a message on the wall. In lipstick. It wasn't there yesterday. Emily's face went pale. She paused, fingers tightening on the fabric in her hands. Lipstick. Ava nodded. Was it red? Emily asked. Ava blinked. Yes. Bright red. Why? Emily stood slowly. That shade. It's Lena's favorite. She always said it gave her power. But she only wore it for the finale. She wouldn't waste it. Their eyes met, and a shiver passed between them. Something wasn't adding up. Emily leaned closer. There's something else you should know. Last week, Lena had a row with Victor, about the script. She said he was changing lines behind Caldwell's back. Said the rewrites didn't feel right, like they were leading somewhere else. She was upset. Ava frowned. Victor's the lead actor. Why would he change anything? I don't know, Emily whispered. But Lena said he'd been staying late, rehearsing scenes that weren't in our copies. She thought he was working off an old draft, something darker. Ava's chest tightened. Do you have a copy of the original script? Emily hesitated, then nodded. Lena left it in the costume room. She said not to read it unless something strange happened. Ava followed her to the cramped room at the back of the theater, where fabric swatches and headdresses hung like sleeping ghosts. From behind a cabinet, Emily pulled out a thick binder, aged and creased. Ava opened it and scanned the first page. The title was the same, but the scenes weren't. They were longer, more cryptic. And one line leapt from the page. The one who speaks the truth shall vanish behind the curtain of silence. Ava's skin crawled. She turned the page. And then another. A scene titled, Act 4, The Disappearance. It described, in disturbing detail, a woman, an actress, wandering into the tunnels beneath the stage, never to return. I don't remember this scene, Ava whispered. It's not in our production. No one remembers it, Emily murmured. But what if it's not just fiction? Ava stared at the page, the ink seeming to pulse under her gaze. Suddenly, the lights in the costume room flickered. Emily jumped. Then the overhead bulbs went dark. For a moment, there was only silence. Then, a loud thump above them. And a voice. Muffled. Croaking. Ava, come see. Emily clutched Ava's arm. The ceiling above them creaked again. Then something fell. Not an object. A single page. Floating down from nowhere. Ava caught it. It was torn from the old script. At the top, written in Lena's handwriting. I found the final act. It wasn't meant to be read. The stage was quiet that night. Too quiet. Ava sat alone in the wings, the script clutched tightly in her lap, the page with Lena's warning folded neatly between its chapters. The other actors had gone home, the The rehearsals called off due to technical issues. But really, it was fear. Whispers of Lena's absence had spread like fire. Someone had finally told Mr. Coldwell. He hadn't taken it well. He'd slammed the rehearsal schedule shut and stormed off, muttering something about damned theatrics, and no one respects the classics anymore. But Ava didn't think he was just frustrated. She saw it in his eyes. He was hiding something. Or maybe protecting something. Emily had offered to stay, but Ava told her to go. Whatever this was, Ava needed to understand it herself. To face it head-on. She turned to the scene titled, Act 5, The Mirror Breaks. It wasn't in their current script. And yet, in the hidden draft, it was detailed to the minute. Stage directions, movements, even exact facial expressions. Ava read aloud. The actress crosses the stage. She stares into the mirror. But what she sees is not herself. A faint chill rolled down her spine. She glanced at the old dressing mirror propped just off stage right. It had always been there. Untouched. Unused. Just a prop, or so she thought. But now, under the weight of the words, it felt different. As though it had been waiting. Ava stood, the loose floorboards groaning under her feet, and approached the mirror. Her reflection stared back, but something about it felt off. A fraction too slow. As if it wasn't reflecting at all, but mimicking. She reached out. Her fingers met cold glass. And then she noticed it. In the corner of the frame, scratched in barely visible etching, 3 letters. LSC. Lena Eloan Clark. Ava gasped. This wasn't just a prop. This belonged to Lena. How long had it been there? Suddenly, behind her, the theater doors groaned open. Footsteps. Slow. Purposeful. Ava spun around. It was Victor. He stood in the dark, his face unreadable. In his hands, an old lantern and something else. The original script. I thought I might find you here, he said, stepping closer. Ava backed away slightly. You've read it, haven't you? The old version. Victor nodded, almost solemnly. It's more than just a script. It's a map. To what? Victor's gaze shifted to the mirror. To what's behind that? Ava's breath caught. I've seen her, Victor whispered. Not just in dreams. In rehearsals. In the reflection. She's trying to speak. Lena. He nodded again. We were both drawn to it. The original play. It was written by someone who never existed. Caldwell found it in an old archive in Brighton. But no record of the author. Just the initials. RM. Why didn't he say anything? He wanted the show to go on. Always does. Victor's voice darkened. Even if it consumes us. Ava shook her head. This is insane. Victor stepped closer. Read page 66. The erased scene. Ava hesitated, then flipped through the old script. There it was. The type was smudged, the ink faded. But she could just make out the words. One must enter willingly. The mirror opens only for the betrayed. Beneath it, written by hand. She knew. And they silenced her. I think Lena went through, Victor murmured. Or was pulled. Then we need to pull her back, Ava said, her voice firm. But Victor didn't move. Instead, he handed her a key. I found this in Caldwell's drawer. It unlocks the basement trapdoor beneath the main stage. What's down there? Victor looked directly at her. The original mirror. The one from the script. Ava's stomach twisted. But this one? She asked, glancing at the one beside her. He looked at it, then back at her. That's just the shadow it left behind. And with that, the theater lights flickered once again. From the mirror, a thin crack began to form, right between Ava's reflected eyes. The following evening, the theater was cloaked in a heavier silence than before. Ava and Victor met just inside the side entrance, their steps slow, their breath visible in the sudden unnatural chill. Neither spoke. There was nothing to say that hadn't already been whispered between them or printed in that cursed script. Victor held the key tightly in his hand, its brass surface cold even through his glove. Ava carried the old script, wrapped in a worn scarf like a sacred text. The theater was still. Too still. Even the wind outside seemed hesitant to stir. They made their way to the center of the main stage. The boards creaked beneath them like groaning memories. Ava knelt and felt along the edge of the trapdoor, her fingers trembling slightly. There, it was almost invisible, masked by decades of varnish and dust. Victor slid the key into the tiny lock nestled beneath the handle. A dull click echoed through the cavernous hall. Slowly, they pulled open the door. A gust of musty, cold air rushed upward, carrying with it the scent of mold, old makeup, and something darker, something that made Ava's skin crawl. They exchanged a look, then descended the narrow wooden stairs, one step at a time, until the hatch closed gently above them, swallowing them in shadow. The basement was vast. Wider than the theater above, filled with remnants of performances long forgotten. Broken props, torn costumes, stage flats warped with age. But in the center, lit by a single exposed bulb swinging from a wire, stood the mirror. It was taller than the one on stage, framed in carved wood blackened with soot or time. It was not cracked. It was pristine. Perfect. And utterly wrong. Ava approached slowly. She felt its pull, as though something behind it recognized her. She reached a hand toward it, then stopped. "Wait," she murmured and flipped open the old script. Page 73. The final marked scene. The one who enters must wear the truth upon their skin. Or be lost. What does that mean? Victor asked, voice low. Ava's eyes scanned the marginalia. A mask, she whispered. But not to hide. To reveal. There, tucked beneath the mirror's frame, lay an old box. Inside, delicate porcelain masks, each with a different expression. Grief, rage, joy, fear. All hand-painted. All with a hole where the mouth should be. She picked up the mask of grief. It was Lena's. Her initials were etched faintly inside. Victor touched the joy mask. They each wore one during the final dress rehearsal. I remember now. Lena wore grief. Emily wore fear. I wore rage. Why were you all assigned one? It was Caldwell's idea. He said it was part of the original script. The masks would open the stage between worlds, he told us. Ava turned sharply. Between worlds. Victor nodded slowly. We thought he was joking. A way to deepen our performances. But now. He didn't need to finish. Ava stood in front of the mirror, holding Lena's mask. She stared at her reflection. No cracks. But behind her, in the mirror's depths, shadows swirled and shimmered. The lights of a stage not their own. A performance still running. I'm going in, she said quietly. Victor caught her arm. You might not come back. She didn't deserve to be left there. Victor hesitated, then handed her something. The joy mask. Take this. I think she'll need it. Ava nodded. She held both masks close, then placed the mask of grief upon her face. Instantly, the air grew colder. The mirror shimmered. And then it opened. Not like glass breaking, but like a curtain being drawn aside. Ava didn't step forward. She was pulled. Victor shouted her name, but she was already gone. She landed not on ground, but on a stage. A perfect copy of the theater above, but everything was inverted. The seats were empty. The air smelled of roses and rot. The chandeliers glowed dimly, as if underwater. Ava removed the mask. The echo of applause rang out. And then, asterisk. Welcome back, Eloan. Asterisk. A voice from the wings. Ava turned. And there she was. Lena. Only it wasn't really Lena anymore. The applause faded, but the echo of it clung to the velvet curtains and shadowed wings like smoke. Ava stared at Lena, or the thing that had once been her. She wore the same costume from the last dress rehearsal. A long black gown with embroidered silver vines crawling up the sleeves. But her face, though recognizable, was changed. Her eyes were too dark, bottomless almost, and when she smiled, it was the kind of smile actors gave in tragedies. Wide, forced, and aching with something unsaid. You came, Lena said, her voice distant, as though spoken from behind 1,000 veils. No one ever comes back. Ava swallowed hard. I came to bring you home. Lena laughed. Not cruelly, but with a sorrow so thick it felt like the walls of the theater pulsed with it. There is no home now. There's only this stage. And the performance that never ends. Behind Lena, the shadows began to move. Figures stepping into dim pools of light. Ava recognized them all. Emily, still in her costume, eyes blank, hands twitching like a marionette's. Caldwell, pacing in a slow circle, muttering lines under his breath. And others, faces Ava didn't know, trapped performers from long before her time. They can't leave either, Lena whispered. We all read from the same script. It bound us. It rewrote us. And now we are part of it. Ava gripped the joy mask Victor had given her. But there has to be a way to stop it. To end the performance. Lena's eyes flicked to the mask. That's not yours. No, Ava said softly. It's yours. You wore grief. But this is what was stolen from you. The joy you never got to finish. Lena stared at the mask as if it burned her eyes. Suddenly, the stage lights above flared, blinding Ava momentarily. A voice echoed across the ceiling like thunder. Begin Act V. She has arrived. Lena flinched. They know you're here. They'll write you in now. You've become part of the script. Ava felt something crawl beneath her skin. She glanced down and saw faint letters appearing along her arms, like ink bleeding through. Words. Stage directions. Her movements being choreographed without her will. No, she hissed, stepping back. You can't fight it alone, Lena said. The script wants a resolution. It feeds on endings. But if you refuse to follow it, if you improvise, maybe... Ava's breath quickened. Maybe I can rewrite it. Lena nodded slowly. But it won't like that. The curtain behind them stirred violently. Emily began to move, stiff and slow, stepping toward Ava with lifeless eyes. Caldwell followed, his hands curled into claws, his mouth still whispering. Ava raised the joy mask. If you still have a piece of yourself, take this. Remember who you were. Lena reached out, hesitant. The moment her fingers touched the mask, the ground trembled. The lights flickered. A ripping sound echoed through the rafters, as if the theater itself was tearing open. And then, asterisk. Ava and Lena were standing not on the strange mirror stage anymore, but in the real theater basement. The mirror had shattered behind them. Victor stood in shock at the base of the stairs. You're back. Lena collapsed into Ava's arms. But before Ava could answer, she noticed the broken shards of the mirror twitching, trying to piece themselves back together. The performance, it seemed, was not over yet. The air in the basement was thick with dust and tension. Victor stepped closer, his face pale beneath the warm light overhead. He looked from Ava to Lena, then to the scattered shards of the mirror that still pulsed faintly, like fragments of a dying star. You were inside it, he murmured. The mirror. It let you in. Ava nodded slowly, holding Lena tighter. It didn't just let us in. It wanted us there. Lena stood in Ava's arms. Her skin was clammy, her breath shallow, but her eyes, though haunted, were clear. For the first time in years, she seemed lucid. It isn't over. The script. It's still writing. Victor knelt beside the broken pieces. Some of the legends said the mirror wasn't just a portal. It was a writer. A collector of stories, of performances. Every soul it traps, every tragedy it absorbs, it writes them into its own eternal production. Ava reached into her coat and pulled out the joy mask, now cracked but glowing faintly with gold beneath the surface. This is the only thing it didn't fully consume. It rejected joy. It needs sorrow. It thrives on unresolved endings. Victor looked up sharply. Then we need to give it what it can't handle. A story with a real ending. One it didn't write. Lena's voice trembled. But it knows. It's watching. It can feel when the story veers from its path. That's why the others, they couldn't change their roles. Ava's mind raced. Then we make a new role. One outside the script. She stood, her voice steadier. We go back. One last time. Victor hesitated. The mirror's broken. No, Ava said. It's changing. It's trying to reassemble. That means there's still a window. And I think I know how to break the cycle. Victor's eyes narrowed. How? Ava turned to Lena. We finished the play. The original play. The one Lena wrote before the mirror twisted it. But this time we ended our way. With joy. With resolution. Lena shook her head. It's never been done. No one's ever ended a performance in the mirror's world. Then we'll be the first, Ava said. But we need a stage. Victor stood slowly. Then let's give it one. It took them hours to set it all up. In the dead of night, they reopened the main hall, sweeping the dust from the wooden stage boards, hanging the old velvet curtains again. Victor found a lantern, lit it carefully, and placed it center stage. The broken mirror pieces were arranged in a half-circle just beyond the footlights. Ava helped Lena into costume. A simple white dress, the one from her original script. The joy mask sat on the edge of the stage, waiting. Ava turned to Victor. Once we step back in, we don't know what's real and what's written. If the mirror rewrites us, then we improvise, Victor said, nodding. They took their places. The moment Lena stepped into the circle of mirror shards, the room trembled. The stage lights flared to life on their own. And the air shimmered. Ava blinked, and they were back. The warped mirror theater. But this time, something was different. The figures of the trapped actors were watching. Still, yes, but present. As if they, too, were waiting for an ending. Lena began the monologue, the one from her original script. This is not where it ends, she said, her voice echoing softly across the darkened stage. This is where I choose. Where I reclaim my name, my joy, my story. Ava stepped beside her. She didn't speak. She just stood there, not as a character, but as herself. The mirror flickered. The figures stirred. The air quaked as if the very fabric of the stage were unraveling. Victor's voice echoed from behind the curtain. Final cue. Lights down. The theater went black. For a long moment, there was only silence. Then, the sound of applause. Not mocking. Not forced. True applause. When the lights came back on, the mirror was gone. Only the stage remained. The actors had vanished. All except Ava, Lena, and Victor. And in Lena's hand, the joy mask, now whole. The theater was silent. No wind stirred. No ghostly whispers floated through the air. Only the faint hum of stage lights and the soft creak of old wood echoed through the grand hall. Ava stood at center stage, Lena beside her, the joy mask glowing faintly in her hand like a heart rediscovered. Victor slowly emerged from the side wing, carrying a folded script. Not the warped one. This was clean, crisp, typed with a typewriter, and bound with a red ribbon. The original, he said softly. I found it in the archives, hidden in a drawer beneath a pile of lighting notes. Lena's script, the real one. Lena reached for it with trembling hands. She flipped through the pages slowly, and a tear slid down her cheek. I wrote this when I still believed stories could save us. Ava rested a hand on her shoulder. They can. They just need the right ending. Lena looked out over the empty seats, where the trapped spirits had once sat, silent and hollow-eyed. Now, there was only stillness. Peaceful. Final. We broke the curse, she whispered. Victor nodded. You rewrote it. With your own voice. You finished it. Suddenly, the theater's heavy front doors creaked open. Cool daylight spilled across the floorboards like the first breath after a nightmare. For the first time in years, natural light entered the building. The darkness, the possession, was gone. Ava stepped down from the stage and walked to the entrance, her heels clicking against the floor. She looked out and saw the street. Normal, bright, busy. Time hadn't stopped. The world had gone on without them. But now they could return. Behind her, Lena held up the joy mask. What do I do with it now? She asked. Ava turned. You keep it. It's yours. It's a symbol, not of the curse, but of survival. Victor nodded. And maybe one day when you're ready, you'll write something new. Lena smiled faintly. Not just something. Everything. They exited the theater together, letting the doors swing shut behind them. For a moment, Ava looked back. The stage lights flickered once, and then dimmed. Forever. 3 years later. The headline read, Renowned playwright Lena Marlowe debuts her newest work, The Mirror's End Draws Standing Ovation. Ava sipped her tea as she flipped through the article. The review called it a masterclass in catharsis. A story born from sorrow, rewritten in light. The photos showed Lena smiling brightly, holding the joy mask in one hand and the script in the other. She looked radiant, whole. Victor now ran a community theater initiative for troubled youth. He used pieces of old sets and scripts to teach storytelling and identity. The haunted past had been transformed into healing. And Ava? She had returned to performing, not just as a character, but as a director, a mentor. Someone who helped others reclaim their voice. Because they had all walked through darkness. And emerged carrying their own pens. Writing their own endings.